Hello students, I am Robert Kostin, faculty lecturer in the IT school here in the Goldstein College. And this is the first video in the course Web and Mobile 1. But before we jump into writing code, I want to take a few minutes to explain how I approach teaching any of my technology courses and how I'd like you to approach learning it. You see, a lot of people think that learning any technology is just about figuring out what buttons to press. You type some commands into a code editor and get some result. Then you do it again, and voila, you built something. So technically, yeah, that's how it works. But to learn any tech that's new to you, it's more than just rote memorization, because you're not just working with, individual tools. You're juggling integrated systems with moving parts. And those parts were built over time by different people for different reasons. And that's the key point right there. Programming, whether it's an individual module or a complete software package, requires you to understand the tools, what they can do and what they can't do, and how you're going to stitch them all together to get closer to a goal that you or someone had in mind from the very beginning. And that requires a lot more than just knowing what buttons to press, or nowadays, what prompts to write. So that's why in any of my courses where I'm introducing technologies to new students, I focus on the context in which the technology was created. Specifically, I want you to understand when it was built and why it was built. And by the way, not just so you have an appreciation of the history of some of the tools that were developed, because that'd be nice, but that's not the point. Most of the tools that we use today were designed to solve a specific problem in a specific moment of time, often years ago, and sometimes decades ago. But here's the thing, with anything we use today, over time, two things always happen. First, the original problem changes, and second, people start using the technology for things the original creator of it never imagined, bending it to their will, sometimes in ways that completely obscures what the solution was intended to do in the first place. That's important for you to know because you, as someone trying to learn the new technology, you need to figure out how it works and how it fits together with everything else that you're going to use to solve the problem in front of you. And that's the rub. Because a lot of what you learn, as you'll find out, it doesn't make sense. And you'll think to yourself, what were they thinking? Why did we have to go through all of these steps? And why does it seem harder than it seems to need to be? Well, the answer to those questions always comes back to the tech's history. It was the inventor of the technology who was dealing with some problem at the time that they sat down to create it. But then time marches on, and we're still using that technology even though years or decades have gone by. So obviously, things have changed since then. Case in point, the World Wide Web. So the web was created over 35 years ago, back in 1989. And at that time, when it was first invented, it looked nothing like what we have today. No social media, no videos, no e-commerce. And all web pages looked the same. Basically, it was black text on a white background. It was like all web pages, they all look like a plain Word document. And would it surprise you to find out that the web was originally created only as a tool designed to help researchers share their academic research documents over the internet? That's it, just a way to publish research papers. And that's my point. Because with that in mind, the web that we know and love today looks nothing like that. And yet, amazingly, it still runs on the same underlying technologies, HTTP, HTML, and URLs. And we've stretched those technologies to do things that they were never meant to do. And while we've made them work, and they have evolved, somewhat, over the years, we developers are still constrained by the same technologies that were designed to do something completely different a long time ago. And that's why I believe understanding the original purpose, the why something came into existence, helps you understand the how of what we do today. So as a designer or a developer, you need to go beyond just learning what buttons to press, because quite frankly, that's not how any of this works. Understanding where it came from, what problems the tech you're using was originally designed to solve, is how we build things now. If it really was just a matter of pressing the right buttons to get the results that you wanted, well, then this would be a vocational school. It's not. Or, you could just take a tutorial online and mindlessly hack away at whatever you get led by the nose to do. And granted, that could lead to some learning, some rote memorization of coding patterns and procedures, but honestly, who has time for that? And when things evolve, and you know that they always do, and you need to pick up the next new hot framework that everyone's talking about, will you be able to wrap your head around it? Or will any of it make sense? And that's my point. The technology has got to make sense to you. And by the way, how does generative AI and vibe coding play into all this? Well, remember that AI code generators were trained on specific things that we developers did over the years. So for the web, that's about 35 years of tricks and techniques that we came up with to solve specific problems that we needed to do. But like I said about learning new technologies, it's not just a matter of pressing the right buttons and getting the right results. Like I said, kind of like a machine. But that is what generative AI is good at, pressing buttons like a machine. The problem is that AI really doesn't have the ability to evaluate whether those buttons pressed actually achieve what we want it to do in the way that we want it done, because that's our job. So for example, if you ask GitHub Copilot to write the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code for your navigation bar that you want to put on your website, oh yeah, it'll do that. But remember the part about how things change over time. 35 years of building websites have resulted in 35 years of best practices and tools and techniques. And your favorite AI can certainly replicate any of that. But the question is, which is the best practice or the right one or the best one for the thing that you're trying to do? Which one incorporates the usability principles for the website you're building? And would you even be able to tell the difference? So that is what this course is all about. So let's get started.